How's it going, everybody? We are back for another week's episode. We are now on episode 16. We are starting to get a good idea of what the college landscape looks like in college football. We've got a couple weeks of NFL games under our belt now, so there are some storylines that are starting to develop, one of them being Bryce Young being benched. So we've got plenty to dive into in today's episode. So let's get ready to roll, y'all.
Sounds great.
Appreciate y'all coming back for another episode here. I know we had a little bit of a mix-up with our episode numbers, so we're back on track, and here we are with episode 16. This is correct. But yeah, lots of good stuff going on over the last couple weeks. I know we had to take a little week off here, but glad to be back, and happy to be here for another episode. So we'll jump right into the sport that has a little bit more depth to its season so far in college football. Pretty interesting weekend last weekend with some of the games and some of the upsets or almost upsets, things like of that nature. So Kevin, if you want to take it away and mention any takeaways you had or things you noticed from week 4 of the college football season, like a quarter of the way through it already.
It's crazy. Yeah, I definitely had a lot of notes. I know you had quite a few yourself. I will say Tennessee and Texas both continue to stay hot right now. I'll even throw Ole Miss in there. Ole Miss has been dominating pretty much every game this season. They've looked really impressive. They're actually one of my college football sleepers. I think they'll make the college football playoff, but I think they might actually contend. So those 3 teams right off the rip look really impressive to me. One team that is just struggling week over week, whether they win games or, come close to losing. Missouri, man. Mizzou barely snuck out a double overtime win over Vanderbilt. They have not really started as hot as most people thought they would. They haven't looked as impressive as most people thought they would. So Mizzou is sticking out to me in a not so great way. Northern Illinois kind of enjoyed their spotlight for a week and then lost to Buffalo last week. So who knows? They might kind of just float around the top 25 throughout the year, or maybe this game will hurt them the rest of the season. And then the last team that I had in my notes here was Clemson. They had a convincing win over NC State. I almost picked that to be an upset last week, but I had heard that NC State was actually starting a freshman quarterback, so I backed away from that. But Clemson won that game, something along the lines of like 59-33 or 59-35, and it really wasn't even that close as the scoreboard shows. So those are the notes that I had from last week. What did you take away?
Yeah, I think Clemson might be back. They look pretty good this year. Had a few convincing wins, and I feel like Cade Klubnik's kind of looking a little bit more like a high prospect quarterback that he once was coming out of high school. But yeah, I mean, to kind of touch on some of your points too before I move into mine here, Texas, you could argue might be the best looking team right now. They're without Quinn Ewers, and obviously they have Arch Manning, who's a big prospect as well, but he's come in and he's just kind of lighting the world on fire a little bit over the last 2 games he's played in. I know they have been inferior competition, but still, like this past week they won 51-3 with the backup quarterback. So, it goes to show just how good of a team Texas actually is. And Tennessee obviously handled Oklahoma. I think we're looking at A, how good Tennessee actually is, and B, maybe how overrated Oklahoma is a little bit. Oklahoma's real first taste of the SEC. A little bit left to be desired there if you're an Oklahoma fan. Jackson Arnold did not look good. I think they're probably leaving that game with a lot more questions than answers about their team. But some of the things I noticed from this past week was Illinois knocking off Nebraska on Friday night. Second ranked team Illinois has beaten this year. Illinois is 4-0 to start the season. They're off to a scorching hot start. That game, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. I know I did get to catch the end of it. That was a really, really entertaining game. Illinois and Nebraska kind of got into a shootout almost. I mean, it wasn't a high-scoring game. The final was 31-24, but both teams were moving the ball. There weren't a whole lot of stops. And then, the Illinois defense rose to the occasion and got some turnovers and stops when they needed it the most at the end of the game, and they were able to squeak out a big win there. I saw something as well, too. This might be like the 25th game in a row Nebraska's lost to a ranked team, which is pretty wild. I know it's in the 20s. I don't know if it's 25 to be exact, but that's pretty crazy, especially when you think, Nebraska's blue blood of college football back in the day, and you figured they'd get one, recently, but, if they were to get one, Illinois was probably a good chance, but hey, Illinois looks legit. So, that was one takeaway I had. Oklahoma, I also mentioned something about them, so I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Michigan, after seeing them get destroyed by Texas, I wrote them off entirely. Now, I'm not saying Michigan's going to be a great team, but I didn't think they'd beat USC. And,
no, I didn't either.
And I want to confirm this, because this is also pretty nuts. They not only beat USC, but their quarterback threw for 32 yards in the win. They rushed it 46 times for 290 yards. So straight ground and pound.
It's like the what is it, Navy? Is that the team that pretty much only runs the ball?
Yep. So that was a pretty interesting game. I did not see Michigan pulling that one out, but what do I know? Utah, interesting situation going on there. Their quarterback Cam Rising was originally supposed to be out for the year. Now he's looking like he will be coming back. He played one snap in this game, and then they immediately went to the backup quarterback, who is Zach Wilson's brother. His name's Isaac Wilson. In Utah, number 12 ranked Utah, 4-0, picked up a win over number 14 Oklahoma State. So did some good stuff there with their backup quarterback in true Wilson fashion. He had one touchdown and 2 interceptions, so really following in his brother's footsteps there. But
I was just looking at that too.
Yeah, but Utah defense held Ollie Gordon, good running back for Oklahoma State, to just 42 yards. So another good win for Utah there. They're kind of battling through some stuff, but they keep on winning. So like what I'm seeing there. And my last one I had here is Kansas State. Just when you start to believe and you think, hey, this team might be legit. This team's doing some good things. Then they turn around and lose 38-9 to BYU. Yeah. Now, Kansas State's got a young quarterback. He's a freshman. Sophomore. Really, this is his first experience he's getting in the college world. And he just did not have a good game. 15-28, 130 yards, 2 interceptions. Not going to get it done. And unfortunately, that's just some of the growing pains you get when you got a quarterback that doesn't have much experience. So Kansas State, who was riding high, is now riding low. And that's really all I had. I guess, in the battle of shit versus poop, Florida proved that they are better than Mississippi State, so that's good.
Hey.
not the bottom of the barrel of the SEC, so that's always a good thing. But aside from that, yeah, I think we pretty much covered it there, unless you had anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, 2 things. So Illinois doesn't really get a break this week. They actually have to play Penn State, so they have another ranked opponent going into this week.
Their coach is talking shit, too.
Is he? I haven't heard anything.
He's just completely downplaying Penn State's atmosphere, saying things like, oh, they're going to bring that whiteout energy, whatever that is. I'm like, let's go. I'm taking Illinois.
Wow. Well, we'll get to our predictions here in a second. The other, I mean, just being a Miami fan, this is the best start they've had in a while. They played South Florida at South Florida. They won 50-15. The game was a lot closer in the first half. Actually, kind of a nail biter in the first half a little bit, but Miami really just broke it open. They shut out USF in the second half, and Cam Ward continues to look really impressive. I mean, he's making a serious case for Heisman right now. We'll see if that continues through the rest of the year. Their schedule's pretty easy, so I wouldn't be surprised if he could put up some really nice stats to finish out the year, but they won 50-15, so really impressive game there. Did you want me to pull up this week's schedule and we can do top 25 and pick it?
I got it right here, so I can go down the list for you if you'd like.
Sure.
So starting on Friday, Virginia Tech and Miami. I'm going to take Miami there. I don't think Virginia Tech's very good.
Yeah,
I'm taking Miami. You feel. All right, now we got Saturday. Illinois and Penn State. I'm taking Illinois. I'm taking Illinois.
I'm going to take Penn State here. I think this is like their first like true test this year. And I have a hard time with Illinois going into Penn State and winning at Penn State, so I'll take them.
So I'm taking Illinois, and this brings me back to a time when I lived in Arizona and I could legally sports gamble. In 2021, Illinois played Penn State. Illinois was unranked. Penn State was 7th in the nation. I woke up feeling dangerous, and I took Illinois money line to beat Penn State. Illinois did it. It only took 9 overtimes, and I've never sweat out a game more in my entire life. And ever since then, I've kind of had a sort of a little affiliation and crush for Illinois, and I kind of always pull for them. So I'm feeling the magic again. If I were a betting man, I'd probably bet on them just because I was like, I did it once, I could do it again. So I'm going to roll with Illinois to continue their hot start here. But Penn State's going to be a tough one. That's at Penn State. That's at night too. So that place will be rocking.
Brett Bielema is still the head coach, right?
Yep.
Dude, he's just such an Illinois guy. Like just such a blue collar Illini coach, and I mean they're playing really well right now. So maybe things will work out with him.
Yep. They look pretty good so far. Moving on to our next game here, we got Kentucky at Ole Miss. I'm taking Ole Miss. I don't think that's going to be very close.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ole Miss. That's my sleeper for the playoffs.
Interesting one here. Minnesota at Michigan. I am going to take Minnesota here. Minnesota can run the ball. And that's going to be a gritty, low-scoring game. And I think Minnesota's got the better quarterback, too.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan's they're ranked 12th in the nation right now, which is actually pretty insane, given the fact that this season has not looked that impressive for them. This one I'm struggling with because I also know it's in Ann Arbor. I'll give Michigan the nod for one more game, but I think they start to derail after this one.
Following that,
sorry up,
guys, I just given it my all. We got number 20 Oklahoma State at number 23 Kansas State. I'm going to take Oklahoma State here.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to take Kansas State. I think they'll have a pretty nice bounce back game here. It really could go either way, but I'll take Kansas State.
Now ranked number 22 BYU gets Baylor. I'm gonna take Baylor.
I'm taking Baylor here too.
I like Baylor.
Yeah, I think BYU is kind of a little bit of a fluke. I think they just had a really nice game last week. I'm going to take Baylor for the upset.
BYU is 4-0 with wins over Southern Illinois, SMU, Wyoming, and Kansas State. So nothing too crazy there. No. Moving on, we got Wisconsin at USC. I'm going to take USC there. I don't think that'll be too close.
Yeah, I think Miller Moss will dominate that game. I'll take USC.
Yep. Louisville at Notre Dame, 15-16. This is a close one. The spread is Notre Dame -6.5. I don't know if I I don't know if I love that. I think Notre Dame's due for another letdown. I'm taking Louisville here.
Yeah, see, like this is a sneaky game for Louisville. They usually have one pretty nice upset every year, or like just barely miss pulling off an upset. I think I'm going to go with you. I think I'm going to say Louisville pulls off the upset here. Notre Dame's already had a pretty shaky year, so I'll ride with Louisville.
Next up, we got Oklahoma at Auburn. I think Oklahoma will bounce back and beat a pretty bad Auburn team. I don't think that one will be too close.
Yeah, if Auburn wasn't as bad as they were, I think I'd feel more comfortable picking them here, but they've looked pretty shitty this year, so I just by process of elimination, I guess I'll go Oklahoma.
Hugh Freeze is a known bad guy now too, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about all that stuff, but
Yeah.
Former players coming out saying Hugh Freeze is a piece of shit, basically. So, yeah, things aren't looking good over for Auburn. Next, we got Arkansas at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a hard place to play, and I want to take Arkansas, but I think atmosphere, environment-wise, is going to help Texas A&M, and I'll say the Aggies win that game.
I think they're actually playing at the Cowboys Stadium. I mean, that's still going to be more of a home game for
You're
A&M.
right. You're right there. Scratch that. I'm taking Arkansas.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Arkansas here. A&M has looked a little shaky this year. They've won some big games, and then they do have only one loss, but they haven't really looked that great to me. So I'll take Arkansas here.
After that, we got the closest game we'll have this weekend. Mississippi State at Texas.
What's the spread there? Do you see it? I have it right here.
Yeah, it's 39 right now, but I think if viewers plays, that'll bump up a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, go Longhorns. They're going to win by a large margin.
Yep. All right, now we got Ohio State at Michigan State. Before I make my pick, I want to say I think this game will be closer than people maybe think it will be. Now, I'm not going to take Michigan State. I'm going to take Ohio State, but I think it's going to be a moderately close game.
I don't. I think Ohio State's going to win by like 20 plus. Michigan State has played FAU, Maryland, Prairie View, and they lost to Boston College. So
Prairie View is a very good football team.
So good that they lost to Michigan State by quite a bit, 40-0.
They just weren't prepared.
Yeah, I guess not. I'm going to take Ohio State by a large margin.
Okay. Whatever. Next we got this could be an interesting one. Stanford at Clemson. I kind of view that as possibly a trap game for Clemson, but I do think Clemson's going to win. So they will not be getting trapped on Saturday. They will be breaking out and getting another dub.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson seems to be in quite a bit of a groove right now. They didn't start the season out that way. They had a pretty sizable loss to Georgia. But Cade Klubnik right now has got 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception. I'm going to say Clemson wins, and I think it'll be pretty close to the spread. The spread's 21. I think it'll be more like 24, 27 difference there.
Okay. Next up, we got Iowa State at Houston. I'm going to go with Iowa State here. And
Yeah,
I don't really have much of an explanation besides that.
That's a no-brainer. They've looked really good as of late. They beat North Dakota to start the year. They beat Iowa barely, and they won against Arkansas State 52-7. So they're playing really well right now. Iowa State.
Leads us to the biggest game of the weekend. We got number 2 Georgia at number 4 Alabama. This is a tough one. I think I'm gonna roll with the Tide. I haven't been overly impressed with Georgia's start, and I just think with it being at Alabama, I think this is gonna be the first signature win for Kalen DeBoer, however you say it, as Alabama's coach, and I think Jalen Milroe will be a big X factor in this one, and I think Alabama will squeak out a close one.
I'm going to go on the other side. I think I like Carson Beck more than I like Jalen Milroe, and for that reason, I'm going to go with Georgia. I think it'll be a defensive battle. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game at all. I mean, I honestly even think it could be like 17-10 final, like that low of a scoring game. So I'll say Georgia just because I slightly lean more on the side of Carson Beck than I do Jalen Milroe.
Gotcha. Late games here, last 3. Washington State at Boise State. I am going to take Boise State, even though they are 2-1 and Washington State is 4-0.
Yeah, I'm going to take Wazoo. I think Wazoo will upset them. So Washington State, they actually found themselves a pretty nice quarterback after Cam Ward left. I don't know how you pronounce his last name properly. I think it's Mateer. John Mateer, he's already over 1,100 yards. He's got 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. They didn't really think they were going to get this much production out of this kid, and he's playing really well right now. So I'll take Wazoo.
I got Boise State, and I got Boise State because Ashton Jeanty is going to run it down their throats.
He is a beast, man. He's already got 9 touchdowns on the year.
All like 5'9", 5'10" of them. He's just going to pop off. So I'm rolling with Boise there. Got an interesting one here in Salt Lake City. We got Arizona at Utah. Now Arizona got off to a hot start, and they've kind of cooled off a little bit since then. Or I shouldn't say got off to a hot start. They were a hot team heading into the year. Maybe they're 2-1, but you can maybe view that as a disappointing 2-1 just because they struggled against Northern Arizona a little bit. They lost to Kansas State. Now they got Utah. I'm going to take Arizona. I think they're due for like a big win and like kind of like a save our season kind of win, even though there's really not much to save. They'll be like a late ranked team at best, but I think their offense will do some numbers, and we'll start to see McMillan and Fafita have that connection again, and I think they'll put up some points to be able to beat Utah.
Yeah, I actually was going to pick the same thing. I like Arizona here, but I like it for a different reason. I think Utah may get caught up in the headlines a little bit with their quarterback drama that seems to be brewing. And I think Arizona is going to come out pissed off and kind of put themselves back onto the map a little bit. So I'm going to take Arizona here. The spread is only 11 for Utah being a top 10 team and Arizona unranked. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. So I'm going to take Arizona.
Right on. And then our last game for ranked opponents is Oregon at UCLA. Oregon wins that game. I don't think there's much to say other than that. Yeah,
I think so. We actually forgot one here, Sean. We forgot LSU and South Alabama.
My apologies.
Put some respect on South Alabama.
I'll take LSU there. And we did also forget one other game, but you got to make your pick first.
Yeah, I'm going to take LSU.
All right. The biggest game of the weekend. Illinois State at North Dakota State. Who you got?
Oh, I'm taking Illinois State, even though I know we're going to lose. I'm going to ride or die until we actually win. It's been a while since we beat North Dakota State. I can't remember what the actual stat is, but I know it's been a little bit since ISU's pulled it off. It's a home game for ISU. Unfortunately, they also made it their homecoming game, which I don't think is very smart because they did that before, and North Dakota State just steamrolled ISU on their homecoming weekend. So, I'll go with ISU, but not in a very confident way.
Hey, it can happen. They look pretty good this year from what I've seen so far. And this is probably not the most talented North Dakota State team of years past, so we'll see. But, it's a tough schedule for a homecoming game, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, that wraps it up unless you have anything else you want to add here.
I'm just live reporting the White Sox game. So for non-Chicago people, tonight could be the night that the White Sox break the record for most losses in a single season. They started out 2-0 to start the game. They were up 2-0, and the Angels had just tacked on 2 runs to tie it. They've got a couple guys on base right now. So I will just kind of keep you guys informed as things are happening live, but we've got a 2-2 game. White Sox could break the record tonight, which we are all hoping they do. As far as college football goes, that's all I had. I think we should jump to NFL recap. So we have week 3 recap. I can start if you want, since you took the time to go through each one of those games.
If that's what you want to do, Kevin, I'm all for it.
That's right, baby. This is my show.
Yeah.
All right. So just some notes that I had here. I was really impressed with the Commanders' win over the Bengals. I think Jaden Daniels looked legit. I think that was a huge win for them. Austin Eckler actually looked pretty nice too before he got hurt.
And then he got hurt, yeah.
So I don't know, maybe this creates some momentum for them. If nothing else, I mean, it's a nice win against a good opponent. So good job by the Commanders. Another game that was pretty impressive, the Bills absolutely steamrolled the Jags. This kind of makes me think, they've had Trevor Lawrence now for at least 4 seasons. Nothing's really come of it. If this season is a complete flop, because they already started 0-3, if this season's a complete flop, do they have to start thinking about making some moves here? I know they already invested in Trevor Lawrence, but...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That was my first follow-up, was they literally just paid him.
Yeah, that's the hard thing here. Is like,
that's not to say you can't still build around him, but he's looked horrible. Like, there's really no other way to put it. He's looked very bad this year.
Yeah, he has. And I know a team, the Miami Dolphins, who might be looking for a quarterback soon. So maybe they just throw everything at Trevor Lawrence and the Jags get a nice return.
Yeah.
But
Cleveland, do they do a Deshaun Watson for Trevor Lawrence swap?
Yeah, really. So I think that's pretty interesting. That's a storyline that we should probably keep an eye on this year, just because they've looked really, really bad. And then my last note I have here is the Rams had a really impressive win over the 49ers.
I know.
And unfortunately, the Bears have to play them this week. So
of course, they figured it all out.
Yeah, they look really nice. Matt Stafford kind of went back like 3 or 4 years and got younger, but that's all I had in terms of notes for this week.
Yeah, for me, Ravens finally got their first win. They picked up a good win over the Cowboys, so I'm sure that was all good there for them. Maybe the talk of the NFL so far is the freaking Minnesota Vikings.
Dude, insane.
Undefeated. Just picked up a convincing win over the Houston Texans. It's unbelievable what that team looks like with Sam Darnold. He's playing probably, you could say, some of the best football of his career, and Kevin O'Connell, their head coach, just looks like a freaking mastermind right now with what he's dialing up for that team. And going into the year, they lost J.J. McCarthy, and granted, he wasn't going to start right away, but that kind of was a damper on their season. And now all of a sudden, it's like, they're firing on all cylinders. You got Jonathan Grenard, their questionable yet big signing of the off seasons, just having a torrid start to the year too. So I think just about everything is going right for the Vikings through these first few weeks, and they're looking awesome. And now they got a big one against Green Bay coming up too. That'll be interesting.
I think they're going to start to dishevel a little bit. They've got a really tough stretch here. They've got at Green Bay, against the Jets, against the Lions, at the Rams, versus the Colts. So I think they'll start to fall apart a little bit. But, I mean, I thought they'd start the year pretty rough, and they've looked nice. So what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, you look at their schedule, they had San Francisco and Houston. I don't know who they also played. I don't know who they played. Okay, so you would have pegged them for a win over the Giants, but then you're thinking they're probably 1-2. That's 2 very tough games. Nope, they are 3-0. So props to them. I can't even say anything bad about them. They're looking good and they're playing good. I'm jealous. I wish I wish I could say the same. Another takeaway I had: Broncos pulled off a little bit of an upset, beating Tampa Bay. Bo Nix also probably had his best his best day as a quarterback so far. Still hasn't thrown a passing touchdown, but just a very effective day distributing the ball out to his weapons and stuff. And they were able to pull off a little bit of an upset and beat the Bucks, who were rolling into that week. I have a note here. The Browns are the Browns. I forget what happened, who they lost to. The Giants. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Browns are 1-2. Two of those games have been at home. They've lost both of them. Lost to Daniel Jones. That's never easy thing to do. So yeah, tough start to the year for Cleveland, and another team that maybe has to look at what they currently have and think, should we start trading some pieces away and try to rebuild this thing, or are we going to try to keep rolling with what we got? Because it hasn't worked for them, and their window's been open since like COVID. So
Yeah.
And then last note I have here, Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, he's still got it. He started for the Panthers and led them to victory over the Saints. So I did not see that coming. Bears also have to play the Panthers coming up. So everyone's just figuring it out. We got the Commanders coming up too, I'm pretty sure. Everybody's figuring it out before they get the Bears. Woohoo. I love it.
Yeah, we better figure it out quick because we have the Panthers after the Rams here, and then the Jags, and then it's the Commanders. Okay, yeah,
so good dysfunction. Brace it up a little bit.
I'm happy the Giants won. The more games the Giants can win, the better the pick will end up being for the Bears. You know, if it's since we get the Panthers' second round pick, so. These other shitty teams, please keep winning games because it only helps us with the second round pick. So, as far as like game to game, I think that was probably about it. I think if I remember correctly, the Cowboys pulled the Cowboys. Like you said, they lost to the Ravens. Cowboys are 1-2 to start the year. Fans are already losing their mind. I will say the Falcons looked pretty impressive against the Chiefs. Their defense came out firing for them to only lose by one score. And honestly, they probably could have won that game if they kicked a field goal late to start the fourth quarter, and then they would have been within a field goal to win it. They looked really impressive to me against the Chiefs on, I think it was Monday night. So, I mean, as far as game to game goes, that's all I have. Update: White Sox just scored a run; they're up 3-2. So we are keeping an eye on it. Main storyline for this week: Bryce Young was benched by the Panthers. We talked about Andy Dalton filling out the stat sheet. How do you feel? Do you think that this was the right move for them? Do you think it's the right move for him in his career?
I'm not going to say it was the wrong move. I just don't think they should have done it quite yet. The hardest thing about it to me is pulling the plug on him now has to mean you're pulling the plug on Bryce Young. You can't. His confidence is already shot. He's had a tough situation. He's struggled. They put pieces around him. He's still struggled. You can't go with this back and forth to where like, oh, we'll sit him for a few weeks and then we'll play him again. I think this should be the end of Bryce Young in Carolina at this point. They need to commit to that. They can't play this in between game, but it was a little quick to pull the trigger on that, especially when you think about everything they gave up to get Bryce Young. But I mean, at the same time too, like his play hasn't done anything to show he's gonna like just somehow figure this out, but I don't know, maybe, you look at guys like Baker Mayfield, you look at guys like Jared Goff. Maybe he goes to another situation, he gets with some better coaching, and he ends up being a good NFL quarterback. Time will tell, but I can't say I agree with the timing, but I can't say I also disagree based on performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 120 passing yards per game. He's got 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. His QBR is 9.1. So he started out just about as rough as you can. I think this is the Panthers' way of saying we want to see what else we have around us. When he's performing as poorly as he is, you really don't know much else. I mean, except for the other side of the ball. On defense, you know what you have. But, like, your receivers, your linemen, your running backs, and they've got some young running backs. You really don't know what else you have surrounding you. So I think with them starting Andy Dalton, that's their way of saying, hey, let's see how this season can go. If we keep losing games and losing games and losing games, maybe we put Bryce Young in towards the end of the year just to give him some more reps, and then we draft a quarterback, possibly 1-1 next year. But I think that this is kind of their way to, I don't know, I guess put a wedge into the season to figure out what it's going to look like, since, they did it only after 2 games. I think it's pretty shitty for Bryce Young. I think it destroys his confidence that already was pretty damaged, like you said. But who knows, man? I mean, he could go to another team with a better system for him, and be the quarterback that he was in college or close to it. So I feel bad for the kid. I think he had a lot of pressure on him to begin with, especially since he landed in Carolina because of a huge trade they made. So a lot of the fans look at that trade with the Bears too, and they're like, wow, this kid better be good. And he hasn't been. Yeah. So I feel bad for the kid. But yeah, I also think he'd be better off somewhere else at this point.
Which I was going to follow up, and where does he even go? It's hard because so many teams have quarterbacks locked up now. It's like, I don't know who would be willing to take a chance on him. The only team I think that maybe makes sense is the Rams, because we don't know when Stafford is going to hang it up. And, they're typically a team that tries to win. A lot can change, and maybe they look at a rebuilding opportunity. But I don't know who would even really want to take a look at that. Do you look at, you got Justin Fields playing in Pittsburgh. Does he stay in Pittsburgh, or does he sign somewhere? There's dominoes that have to fall too. And then does Pittsburgh look at a guy like Bryce Young, or does Cleveland look at a guy like Bryce Young for insurance if they do pull the plug on Deshaun Watson? There's really not a clear-cut destination for him either.
No, I think
Raiders,
he needs to
maybe?
take. Yeah. See, I think the opposite. I think he needs to take a route where he can learn from an actual vet who had success in the NFL. So 2 teams come to mind for me with older quarterbacks. The Rams, learning from Matt Stafford would do him great service. That would be a great quarterback for him to learn from. The other one I think about is the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Him getting older. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, learned from Brett Favre. He also taught Jordan Love a lot of things Aaron Rodgers did. So maybe he's got some knowledge to drop on Bryce Young. And if I had to pick one team, I think that's probably the team I'd pick is the Jets, because they could buy really low, have him learn from Aaron Rodgers, and then, give him the keys and see what they got.
Yeah, I did just realize too, there actually is only one team that will get Bryce Young.
Oh.
It's going to be the Bears. They have to do it. They have to. They have to give a 3rd-round pick for him. That would be hilarious if they turn around and just trade just to roster him. I don't even want him to play. He can be on the practice squad. Dude. Just to bring that trade full circle and just to have him in a Bears uniform. It would be poetic justice.
I think the Panthers would just rather release him.
Yeah, I think they probably would.
I think they'd be like, screw the 3rd-round pick. That's so embarrassing. We're just going to release him.
If the Bears offered a first, they might say no.
No, literally. All right, do you want to jump into the games this week and we can make our picks? I've got it pulled up here.
Yeah, let's do that, man.
All right, man. So the divisional games that I hate the most that they always show on TV, it's our Thursday night game. We've got Cowboys and Giants.
Cowboys.
That's an easy one, Cowboys. All right, we have Sunday games. So the morning games, we've got Rams and the Bears. Oh, do you want to wait?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the Chicago segment.
Okay. Next game lined up, we've got Saints and Falcons. It is in Atlanta.
I'm going to go with the Falcons here. I think maybe they'll use some momentum from their game from KC.
Me too. I really like what I saw from their defense last game, so I'm going to say Falcons. And I honestly even think that they could win by double digits, 10, 14, somewhere in that range.
Kirk's due for a solid game.
Yeah, and everybody else is pretty productive. I mean, even Darnell Mooney looks really nice for them so far. Vikings and Packers. This one is at Lambeau.
I'm going to take the Vikings. I think they'll keep this rolling through this week. Not just saying that because I hate the Packers. Believe me, I do. I really, really do. But I just think with Jordan Love being on the fence of playing or not, Minnesota's defense is playing well. I think it's going to cause a little bit of a headache for Green Bay, and I think Minnesota will pick up a win here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the only way Green Bay comes away with it is if Jordan Love comes back and he's like actually healthy. If he's kind of just coming back still nursing it, then I don't think they stand a chance. So I'll say Minnesota. All right, this is kind of an interesting game here. So we've got two dual threat quarterbacks. We've got the Steelers and the Colts in Indianapolis.
I'm going to go with the Colts.
I really struggle picking the Colts here because of how bad Anthony Richardson's looked in back-to-back weeks. He looked rough against the Packers. He looked rough against the Bears. It still beat us. I think I'm going to say the Steelers here. Not with a lot of emphasis, but yeah, I'll just say Pittsburgh. I've liked what I've seen out of Justin Fields more than Anthony Richardson so far. I don't think I'll have the same answer at the end of the year, but just right now.
Yeah, I just need the Steelers to lose so people will stop making it seem like Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the NFL now because his defense is allowing about 6 points per game and they're 3-0. I could freaking be 3-0 in that offense too, so or on that team, I should say.
Hey, as long as he keeps starting enough for us to get a better draft pick out of it, I'm fine with it. I think it's 7 games or 8 games he has to start, something like that. So
yeah,
that's fine.
We'll see.
All right, we've got Broncos and Jets at the Jets.
Jets will win that one easy.
Yep. Eagles Buccaneers in Tampa. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, very interesting game. I'm gonna go with Philly.
I kind of like the Bucs here. I think Baker started out the season pretty hot. Last game he was just so. So I'm gonna call for a bounce back game from Baker. I'll say the Bucs win.
Okay.
All right, we've got a shit bowl here. We've got the 0-3 Bengals and the 1-2 Panthers.
As much as I want to call this a Dalton revenge game, I think the Bengals will finally get their first win of the season, and I think they'll hang a number on the Panthers that they're just not going to be able to match.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, Joe Burrow hasn't really looked that bad. He hasn't even thrown an interception so far. So
no, him and Chase are starting to connect again too.
Yeah. All right, we'll both say Bengals. Jaguars and Texans in Houston. It's not that hard.
It is.
It's really not that hard.
I'm gonna go Jaguars. I think they'll figure something out this week. I think there's going to be a little dark cloud hanging over Houston from last week going into this week, and I think the Jaguars will figure it out. I think they'll get a good win here.
If you had money on it, would you pick the Jaguars?
Yeah. Listen. Every pick I have, I'll bet it if I could.
I'm gonna say no. All right, I'm gonna say Texans. I don't think it'll be that close. Commanders and Cardinals. This one's really interesting. This is in Arizona too.
Yeah, it is interesting. Cardinals have looked pretty good this year. I think you got to factor in the whole rookie quarterback thing for the Commanders, so I'm going to take the Cardinals.
Yeah, Cardinals are 1-2, but they've looked pretty nice. Kyler is really starting to connect with Marvin Harrison the last couple games. I think that'll be a game changer for them. I am going to say the Cardinals as well, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Commanders continue to play well after this game. Patriots and 49ers at the 49ers.
49ers.
Yeah, I agree. Brock Purdy's looked so.
The reason I laughed is because of the next game.
Browns and Raiders?
Yeah.
In Vegas.
Gosh, I know. The Browns will win that game just because their defense is really good. And Gardner Minshew is not very good.
I am going to call for a statement game from Max Crosby, and I'm going to pick the Raiders because
Paul howling over there.
Hell yeah, Paul, I got you. I'm going to pick the Raiders with a statement game from Max Crosby, and hopefully Devontae Adams starts to actually be productive. To no fault of his own, but still.
Yeah.
All right, we've got Chiefs and Chargers at the Chargers.
I got the Chiefs there. Chargers are pretty banged up.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins still looks pretty nice, but I'm going to take Chiefs too. And then the Sunday night game, we have Bills and – wait, is this Sunday night or is this Monday night?
Sunday night.
Bills and Ravens in Baltimore.
I got the Bills. They look really good. Josh Allen is playing unbelievable football, and I think he's going to keep rolling on through.
Jared Cook too, man. Jared Cook has looked really nice to start this year. I struggle with this one because Derrick Henry's also looked really dominant to start this year. All right, just for fun.
Is it James? I think it's James Cook.
Oh, James Cook. Yeah, Jared Cook is another athlete. I'm going to take the Ravens that are going to upset the Bills. Actually, surprisingly enough, the Ravens are the favorite here, 2.5.
Yeah, it's just they're at home probably.
Yeah. All right, we've got 2 Monday night games here. We've got Titans-Dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
What a banger, baby.
Yeah. I'll be glued to the TV. Friggin' Tim Boyle versus Will Levis. Fun fact about the Titans, in fantasy, I've taken the strategy of pick up whoever is playing the Titans for my defense, and it's worked out really well.
What's the most points they put up this season? 20. Oh no, they put up 17 against the Bears and against the Jets. So that makes sense.
And Will Levis is turning the ball over like crazy. It's just it's like an automatic solid defensive performance. I got 23 points last week.
I'm actually going to take the Titans here, though. I think the Dolphins are in meltdown mode right now. It's only a 1-point spread. Miami's giving 1 to Tennessee, so we'll take the Titans. And
I will take the Titans too, and it hurt. The Dolphins meltdown hurts because I got Tyreek Hill on one of my fantasy teams, and he's just not it so far.
That's like me with Devontae right now. Devontae has not been great. I've also been dealt with a lot of injuries. CMC being one of them.
Same, not CMC, but I've got like 5 guys out. Yeah, stashing them though. I'll be damned if I don't get my squad together at one point.
All right, last Monday night game. This one could be fun. It's Seahawks and Lions. It's in Detroit.
I got the Lions coming out, getting a win, and I think people are going to start to realize that, hey, maybe the Seahawks aren't that good. So I got Detroit standing on business at home, beating the Seahawks. I'll even say by 10 plus.
Yeah, I think the Lions are going to beat the shit out of the Seahawks this week.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. I can't wait. Oh man,
Lions by 40. All right, good stuff. Well, we have one last thing to talk about. I'll let you kind of take the reins on this since I just went game by game, and you want to talk about the national storyline that was ironically dropped this week.
Yeah, Adrian Wojnarowski, a.k.a. Woj, retired from ESPN. Woj, whatever. Retired from ESPN to become the general manager of St. Bonaventure's men's basketball. I believe he went there.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Woj came out with a statement that basically was like, look, I've given my all to this profession for so long, starting from blah, blah, blah newspaper all the way up to ESPN. I loved every day of work. I had the passion to have those long days, have those long nights, and to grind through that work all the time to put out the best product I can. I'm summarizing now. This isn't word for word. So, and he basically,
you don't say.
Yeah. And he basically said, I don't have that same passion anymore. And I am taking this next step to do something different. And it leads him back to, where he once was. So kind of an interesting move. As someone that has worked in the sports writing industry, it can be a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends, really minimal time off and kind of always having to make yourself available, so I can see why people would get worn out after a long time. But still very prominent news because it was always him and Shams that were going back and forth, and now Shams is going to be battling himself. So it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see the domino effect here. Like, is St. Bonaventure going to be like a basketball hotbed now, or like, what's going to happen? But yeah, just kind of surprising, but at the same time too, like, do what's best for you, man. So good for him.
Woj dropped his last Woj bomb. I think with free agency and the NBA draft, I mean, he's been doing it for years, so I can't really blame him. And Shams does a really nice job to step in for him, so the NBA will be fine. But they'll still play and everything. That's not an issue. They'll still be an NBA. Don't worry.
I
mean reporting, and I guess more so NBA Twitter. But yes, they will still play.
Kevin's initial reaction was, "Holy shit, the NBA is going to be canceled."
Freaked out a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how hands-on he is with St. Bonaventure. It could.
I think he's still going to leak stuff. Like, I don't think we've seen the end of the Woj bombs by any means.
Yeah. I'm sure certain players would want him too. So we'll see. All right, y'all. Well, that's it in terms of main storylines. We're going to dive into the Chicago topics now. Main storylines ran a little bit longer than we normally do, but we had plenty to talk about, so happy to do so. So I think where we should start with Chicago topics, Sean, I think probably the best place right now is just like an overall story. So Chicago Sports Network, information started to come out here, and they're talking about who is going to run the pre and post games with each one of the teams. So Bulls and Blackhawks. The Bulls pre and post game crew that was announced was Jason Goff, Kendall Gill, and Casey Johnson. Now, I'm going to preface this conversation with this. I don't really know a lot of these guys' personality on air. Like, I know I've listened to them, but I don't really recognize who I'm listening to when I'm listening. I more so recognize these guys across Twitter or X. So I think I'll let you go more in depth in regards to what this means for the Bulls, and we'll talk about the Blackhawks too. So again, just one more reminder, Jason Goff, Kendall Gill, and Casey Johnson for the Bulls.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to add to that. It's really kind of pretty much just getting like NBC Sports Chicago's Bulls Talk crew over to this new platform. And Bulls Talk does a pretty good product given the state of the Bulls over the last few years. And Casey Johnson's probably one of the best reporters in the city when it comes to what he's able to do and his knowledge and everything like that. So it'll still be a good product and be worth tuning into, even though the team's not going to be very good. But I think they got a good crew that they'll be rolling with for the Bulls there.
Hey, we wanted change, and we're getting change. So I think the Bulls this year could be watchable, especially after some trades go down. Blackhawks pregame and postgame crew, Pat Boyle, who's been there a while, Tony Granato, and Kaylee Chelios.
It's pretty much the same sentiment that I had before.
Okay.
So
sounds good. So they're actually going to have studios at the United Center. The network so far has actually struck a deal with DirecTV. So I'm sure
cool
more
that
will
they
come out.
Yeah, I would guess. If not, that's a tragic start. But I mean, this network is getting ready to run here in October 1st, so that's coming up soon. So they got to figure out who else is going to carry them, things like that. But definitely a cool setup where they will have the studios at the United Center, and if I'm correct, I believe I am. They're actually going to be employees of the teams, so kind of an interesting twist to that as well. That's a little bit different than what they were with before, from my understanding. So, kind of a little interesting twist there. But I mean, to be able to have studio access in the arena that you spend a lot of your time in, I mean, from a work standpoint, like, that's fantastic. So, they're setting them up for success. It's just a matter of making sure it is a success and it's just sustained success.
I wonder how that'll affect their dialogue, though, because not to single one person out, but I know like Chuck Garfien, for example, can tend to be an ass kisser from time to time when it comes to the White Sox. And there are times where he'll get very real, and I appreciate that. But I wonder how that'll affect their dialogue if they're employees of the team. They might be limited with, things that they can say, but we'll see. Time will tell. Sean, I'm going to give you the floor to talk about some Blackhawks news that came out this week, and I guess your thoughts there.
Yep. Blackhawks named Nick Foligno the 35th captain in franchise history. Last year, they rolled with a alternate captains group of Nick Foligno, Seth Jones, and Connor Murphy. I believe were the only three. They didn't have a captain. They're keeping that same group, but they decided to make Nick Foligno the actual captain this year in a not surprising move. Everyone knows this is a placeholder until Connor Bedard eventually wears it. Hopefully eventually wears it. He probably will. But, Nick Foligno's really a guy that's come in and embraced the Blackhawks from day one. It's not an easy situation to come into, especially for a guy that's been around the NHL for a long time. He didn't need to, take on this leadership and this mentor role with the Blackhawks, but he embraced it, and he, from what I know, immediately became a leader day one that he came in to the organization, and has just kind of kept doing that and really looked over the young guys that we have here. So kind of a no-brainer decision, and definitely a guy who is well equipped to be able to wear the C and be a captain of a very, very big franchise. So I think he'll do a good job for however long he wears it for. I think they got him for 2 more years as of now. I would guess at that point they will look to probably make Bedard the captain by then. So,
yeah, from what I have read and understand, he's been tremendous in the clubhouse. And I saw a little video of how he was presented the honor of being captain. His kids actually brought the jersey up to him, and that's how he found out. So kind of a cool moment for him. Blackhawks preseason actually technically already started. They have a 1-1 game with the Red Wings right now. Anything you're kind of watching this preseason?
Yeah, I'll be watching hockey.
Wow, thank you. And that's it, folks. We are done for the night.
No, the Blackhawks got some interesting storylines heading into the season. Their roster is mostly put together, but they kind of got a little bit of a logjam at forward. You look at younger guys like Colton Dock, Frank Nazar, and Lucas Reichel, I'll even throw in there as kind of guys that are fighting for, being part of the bottom 6 lines and fighting for roster spots and things like that. Landon Slaggert's a guy that he was with the team for a little bit last year, and he's a younger guy too. And so you got guys like that that'll be fighting for roster spots. I would guess Reichel probably gets one because they did sign him, but just keeping an eye on how the bottom half of the roster will shake out and what those lines look like. Most of the rest of it's put together, but then kind of looking defensively, Kevin Korchinski, he might be a guy that starts off in the minors or with at their Rockford affiliate, and he could also be a guy that makes the team. So just kind of a few loose ends that they got to tie up there. Obviously, Kevin Korchinski played all of last season with the Blackhawks, but feel like he's a guy that could probably benefit from getting some time in Rockford. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. But besides that, you got a pretty good idea of what your team's going to look like. It's just a matter of seeing, how these last few spots shake out. I know like Colton Dock's been impressive in the prospect showcase they have. Frank Nazar has been impressive in the showcase and throughout training camp and stuff too. But it's like nothing's going to be given to these guys. They're going to have to keep earning it. So we'll see what that looks like once the regular season rolls around.
I think it's an interesting opportunity to construct how you want the lines to look too. And obviously it's a good opportunity for these guys to get reps, especially some of these younger prospects. Guys like Seth Jones, he doesn't really need the reps. He's been here a while. So We'll see. I might tune in a little bit myself, especially if it's nationally televised. I don't know if tonight's game is or not. Gotcha.
I just tried to watch. It's on Blackhawks.com, but you can only watch it in the Chicagoland area, unfortunately.
Oh, fun. Well, that doesn't work out for
I even put my shirt on. I was ready.
I guess so. All right, That's all we got for Blackhawks talk. The next one is probably the beefiest topic we're going to have in terms of Chicago topics. Bears talk. So we're 1-2. We just lost a heartbreaker to the Colts. We've been within one score of every single game we've played so far, which is what I appreciate. I guess I could probably start with my thoughts, and then you can add to anything you want to add to, if that sounds good to you.
That sounds great, Kevin.
Okay. So here's where I'm at. Right now, after 3 weeks, we just lost to the Colts. Really rough game for us to lose. Kind of a heartbreaker. A lot of Bears fans felt pissed off. For me, my mindset is I think we need to put this loss aside and also put aside the issue that we have at offensive coordinator with Shane Waldron. Here's why. Caleb Williams just put together the best rookie quarterback performance in Bears history statistically. It was the 11th highest passing yards during a single game in Caleb's third game. That was the most passing yards by a Bears quarterback since 2016. We're fine at the quarterback position. We don't need to panic. All these fans that are freaking out about Caleb Williams, he finally threw his first touchdown, still is throwing more interceptions. It's fine. He's going to be fine. He looks legit. Now, there are some massive holes at offensive line and at running back. Caleb himself has accounted for 89% of the entire Bears offense so far. That's how bad the line has been, and that's how poor our running back production has been. That part has to change, or else it's going to be a rough season. I mean, we're talking 5-12, 6-11, something like that. If we don't get production from our running backs, we're screwed. Now, I did see some news about Roschon Johnson getting some more reps at running back, which personally makes me really happy. I thought he was our most productive running back last game. We'll see what it looks like over a larger stretch. And then my last thought is, as far as offensive coordinator goes, all we can hope for at this point is that Shane Waldron starts to draft up our offense to Caleb's strengths, or that Caleb Williams starts to learn quickly how to read these defenses and starts to recognize properly when and how to audible successfully. He's already starting to do that in game, but I think he definitely needs some more games under his belt where basically he can hear the play come in. If he doesn't like what Shane Waldron is drafting up, he can just basically say, no, fuck you. We're going to audible at the line of scrimmage and draft up something that should be called. That's where I want Caleb. Statistically and on film, he's fine. He looks fine. I want him to get to a point where he can get a play call in. If he doesn't like it, he knows exactly what to draft up. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'll stop and I'll let you give your thoughts.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway, number one, is people are acting like the Bears screwed up this quarterback situation because the Steelers are 3-0, because Justin Fields is a starter there, and because the Bears are 1-2, and Caleb struggled a little bit to start his NFL career. Now, I personally, I don't give a shit what the Bears' record ends up being. Would I like them to show something, whether that's pushing towards a wild card spot or even making the playoffs? Absolutely, I would love that. But the only thing I care about by the end of this year is Caleb Williams. If he throws for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, whatever, interceptions, and the Bears go 5-12, that's a successful freaking year in my book. With that being said, I think people need to take a step back, and just because Justin Fields is 3-0 on the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you put Caleb Williams on the Steelers, he's going to be 3-0 too.
Yeah.
Caleb has gotten better every single week. Week 1 was tough. It just week 1 of the NFL, it happens. Week 2, first drive against the Texans was unbelievable. He was, that's when we started seeing him go up, call out things at the line, use the different arm angles that he can, move around a little bit to make plays. That looked better. Still didn't have the touchdowns, but still, as a whole, looked better. Now we're into week 3. Got his 2 touchdown passes. That was great. Overall in the game, I thought it was an improvement, but I still don't think you can say like Caleb's had a great game. Now, the also fun thing to think about with that is you look at a guy who just threw for 363 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. You listed it 11th highest passing yards game in Bears history, best Bears rookie quarterback game, and he didn't even have like a great game. Yeah. Like imagine what it would look like if from start to finish he had a great game. I think we'd be salivating at that, and I think a lot of this the people thinking so negatively about him, which I think is unfair, but I think it just has to do with the record. Like, for whatever reason, people are so hung up on win-loss record, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. Yes, quarterbacks are important. Yes, they can win you games. Yes, they can lose you games. But you can't really judge a quarterback by win-loss specifically, or strictly by win-loss. Like, that's just stupid. Yeah. I agree with you. The offensive line is rough. I thought Pryor looked okay coming in there. Like it looked maybe a tiny bit better, but that's not saying much.
I prefer him.
Yeah, yeah. But still, just so much to work on there. They obviously are going to prioritize offensive line in the draft and in free agency. If Ryan Poles has half a brain cell, he will do both of those. Yeah. I'm starting to get a little worried, though, with like Tevin Jenkins is due to get paid. I don't know if they should pay him, but then that opens up another hole on the offensive line, right? So it's like, do you give him like a 1 to 2 year prove it deal, or are we actually seeing what Tevin Jenkins is now? Because if this is what he is, I don't know if I want to have him back,
Yeah, I mean, they also noted that Kieran Amageji actually practiced for the first time, like a full practice. So we might actually start to see him on the field soon, which, God, the timing could not be better. And they were really high on him during the draft. Here's my question to you. Would you say that week 3 was Caleb Williams' best performance?
Yeah, for sure.
That was actually the smallest amount of time he had to throw, an average time to throw. So week 1, 2.75 seconds. Week 2, 2.85. Week 3, 2.64. So that was the least amount of time he had to throw out of any of the first 3 weeks. And he came out and still threw 2 touchdown passes. Yes, he threw 2 picks. One of them wasn't really his fault. Yeah. But that's the reason I bring that up is because Caleb Williams is growing right in front of our eyes, and he's growing quickly right in front of our eyes. And that's why I want him to get to the line of scrimmage, hear a play, be like, Shane Waldron, you're a fucking dumbass. No, audible, here's what we need to call. And then I think the Bears offense could start to click on all cylinders. Now, Keenan Allen still has yet to play. It sounds like this week he might. Roma Dunze looked phenomenal last week. I loved what we saw from Roman Dunze. And on top of it, Cole Kmet looked great. I mean, he had some mistakes during the game, but in terms of like a catching tight end, he looked great that game too. So I love that they're starting to distribute the ball. I'd like to see DJ Moore get the ball more, other than just like quick little passes out of like the slot, or like just
they're
like
just
quick
hoping
slants.
He can make a guy miss and take it to the house, or take it for 50 yards.
Yeah, which I'm sure is frustrating for him, but like I really like what I've seen from the development of Caleb Williams so far. Offensive line is just an absolute mess, and that's a big reason why we're 1-2 to start the year. I think
why the hell didn't they sign Connor Williams?
Dude, I even at the time I was wondering why they weren't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's pretty confusing to me. Maybe there's a trade at the deadline and they get a lineman, relatively cheap. Who knows? But that's kind of where I stand. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we preview the Rams game?
Yeah, I do. I wholeheartedly agree with you on all the Shane Waldron discourse. I think we're probably looking at a guy that I hope isn't back after this year just because his offensive play calling has been horrible. That goal line where they just tried to run it 4 times and then did the freaking option on 4th down was probably, and this is knowing how bad your offensive line has been playing, probably one of the worst play calls I've maybe ever seen watching the Bears. Just,
dude,
DeAndre Swift, yes, he's bad, and yes, he has been a disappointment. He had like 3 offensive linemen on the ground by the time he got the ball. And he's like, what is he supposed to do? Like, he's just dead to rights there. And it's like, you think that's going to work? Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I would call something better in Madden. And let me call a play. I'll do it for free. Just, you have to say this play was called by Sean Williams if it works. If it doesn't work, it was Shane Waldron. So
still an SW.
But yeah, right. But it's been rough with him. And honestly, too, probably my biggest takeaway from the Bears season this year, and it is very, very unfortunate one, but I'm not surprised we're at this point, is Matt Eberflus is not meant to be a head coach here. And I know you and I have talked a little bit about this before, but the Bears, Ryan Poles, probably his biggest miss right now is going to be keeping Eberflus this year and missing out on a guy like Jim Harbaugh he could have hired, or a guy like Matt Vrabel who he could have hired, or Pat Vrabel, right? I called him Matt.
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel.
It's the whole Vrabel family. Yeah. Hire the whole Vrabel family.
Hire any Pat. Hire any Matt. Matt Patricia. Maybe that's what I was thinking. But it's just, you had opportunities to get a home run hire and a head coach, and he just got way too attached to Eberflus. Like, yes, the Bears won 7 games last year. Yes, the defense looked good at the end of the year, but they won a bunch of meaningless games, and just because they did that, I don't think Eberflus was worthy of getting another opportunity, and I was very afraid that this would be something that would happen, and now we're at the point where they're either going to have to commit to Eberflus for another year, or they have to fire him after this year, and I just really hope they fire him. It's not a good situation for Caleb to have to learn it, because if Eberflus goes, probably everyone else goes. So you're looking at learning a new offense for Caleb Williams, having a new head coach, and that's not something you would love to do to a guy who just got done with his rookie year. Do I think Caleb's different than your typical NFL prospect? I do. So I think he can handle something like that, especially when it comes to mentally being able to handle that. But still, not a good situation that you would like to do for your quarterback. But at the same time, too, like we talked about earlier, you look at like Washington and what Cliff Kingsbury is doing with Jaden Daniels. If you call Cliff Kingsbury at the end of this year and say you want to reunite with Caleb, he says yes. He would probably take that job without even knowing what he is going to make. So it's like, you have the chance to right these wrongs. Just freaking do it. Like, don't say like, we got to give Matt another shot because we don't want to have Caleb learn another offense. Well, spoiler alert, he'll have to after that year too, because it ain't going to get much better. Yeah. So that's been my biggest thing, and I feel like the Bears are just at such a disadvantage going into most games just because of the guy who they got, like, calling the shots. He can't manage timeouts. He can't manage challenges. Yeah. I would love to hear what the hell he says to his team to get him pumped up, because I feel like he's just weird. And, like, what is going to come out of his mouth that's going to excite grown men? Like, I just don't know.
I think that's coming from vets in the clubhouse. And that's why they bring in guys like Kevin Byard. But look, if Matt Eberflus was our defensive coordinator, home run hire, phenomenal move. But with him being our head coach, just really, really poor decision. You had plenty of options available this offseason, and you chose to ignore that. So, it's hard because I want them to make a move. I want him gone. I want a new coach in, but then that starts the clock all over again with Caleb Williams, and that's the part of it that really sucks. So
I think, if you look at doing the thing I mentioned where, like, you get Cliff in there, like, that helps a lot, too, because there's familiarity there at least.
And a lot of guys would salivate at the opportunity to work with Caleb.
So many people would be calling the Bears to take that job.
Yeah, especially for
I would be calling
coordinator. Offensive coordinator would be such an easy hire. So
head coach too.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Bears Rams preview.
Speaking of coaching deficiencies,
what do you think? I mean, do you think we stand a chance? Do you think Rams are going to run away with this? I mean, where's your head at?
My head's all over the place.
Yeah,
I think the Bears.
Too.
I think the Bears will win. I think Caleb's going to have a very big day. I think turnovers are going to be limited. Rams defense isn't very good. So I think the Bears will win. I think it'll be pretty close. But at the same time too, like I wouldn't be shocked if this game goes off the rails too, because McVay's just so much better than Eberflus, you know?
Yeah, I think they'll get outcoached, and I think that's why the Rams will be close. I mean, I'm looking at the Rams' defensive line right now, and they're not really that talented. They don't have to be because our offensive line sucks ass. But, like, I mean, it's nice that you don't see a lot of big names here. So I think the Bears are going to win for a weird reason, and that weird reason can be like a safety. The Rams miss a field goal. I don't know, just something really just like off the rails like that. I think the Bears are going to get a win because of that. I think Caleb Williams bounces back in some regards. So I think it'll be something like 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, or like 1 thrown touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. So I think he starts to get on the right side of the stat sheet, but I think that there's still going to be some growing pains here.
Fair enough. I can't say I disagree with any of that. I don't know. I just feel like Bears are due for like a clean game too. You know?
Yeah.
And this would be a defense where they could do something like that.
We need it so bad, just to like walk away and be like, yeah, we won that game.
Yeah, we won.
All right, so we're going to talk about White Sox now. Score is 3-2 White Sox is the top of the 7th, so they may not break the record again tonight. They currently are tied for the most losses in modern-day MLB history. That record was tied on Sunday, and here we are on Wednesday, still waiting to see if they're going to break it. They will go for history. It's only the top of the 7th, so there's still game time left, but the record speaks for itself. There's really not much to say here. They are horrendous. I don't watch games anymore. I will tune in to see the game where, you know, they clinch the worst record in MLB history, but I think right now we're at a point where we're talking more prospects. And that's been the case for a couple episodes now. So
letting the kids play a little bit, which is nice. One thing I think we can mention is there's really not much to say about the worst modern day record in MLB history. I mean, we've talked about this team for months on this podcast, and not much has changed, but they pushed Garrett Crochet back to start against their final series of the weekend, or of the season, when they go to Detroit. Detroit's fighting for a playoff spot, so at least they're like, hey, we know we suck. Like, let's at least give Detroit everything we got and try to play spoilers or something, you know. So I'll applaud him for that. You know, it's the one nice thing about, I will say, the one really nice thing that's happened throughout this recent weeks of losing and tying this record is the organization and Jerry Reinsdorf has publicly been blasted, and I think that people finally are starting to realize just how poorly run this organization is, and are learning things that White Sox fans have known for years. And it's nice to see that old bastard get all the hate and the criticism that he deserves, because just the fact that he has this product out there and this is what he wants, and he hides behind, you know, in his suite and doesn't talk to anyone is pathetic. And and I'm happy to see him get criticized heavily, and I hope that continues.
Yeah. Last night's game was pretty telling. They were actually cheering for the Angels when the Angels scored runs. White Sox fans were. And every opportunity they had, they were chanting, sell the team, sell the team. And that's what we need. I mean, as sad as it is to get to this point, that's what we need. Because until Jerry Reinsdorf is gone, we're not going to go anywhere. He's not going to spend money. Nothing's going to change. So, it makes for entertaining watching at the very least. So I'm fine with it. I will say, though, a couple guys that I'd like to highlight that are on the team right now that have been playing really well. Prelander Barreau has been pitching really well for us. So, we may have found some bullpen pieces that we could use. I know Sean Burke was called up not long ago. He's pitched pretty well. Yeah, he's been pitching pretty well for us. So it's little, I guess, silver linings like that you look at when you have a season that you're having right now, like the White Sox are. They also might have a tied game here soon. It's top of the seventh, one out, man on first and third for the Angels. So,
well, to be fair, the team they are playing is not much better than them. So,
no, somebody tweeted the Angels out White Sox the White Sox last night.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well put. All right, I think we should probably cap it off with just highlighting a couple of minor league guys and some notes there, and then maybe call it an episode. So do you want to talk about some minor league guys that got some recognition?
Yeah, you want to list them off for me? I closed out our notes a little early.
Wow. Sean's not prepared, folks. All right, so Noah Schultz was named Southern League Pitcher of the Year. I think I'll probably start there.
Yep. Good for him. He did not have a full season in Double-A. I got his stats here, so I am prepared. He made 16 starts with the Barons, 61 innings pitched, 45 hits, 10 earned runs, 17 walks, and 73 strikeouts. So had a 1.48 ERA with the Barons, and that was good enough to win Southern League Pitcher of the Year. Good for him. Hope they unleash him a little bit next year. He was on a pretty strict innings limit and stuff, so he looks like he is the next lefty in line to follow suit with what the White Sox do best. So,
yeah, he's looked really nice.
Local kid too. We love that.
Him and Edgar Caro, Brooks Baldwin, and Drew Thorpe were all named Southern League All-Stars. I think that the headline kind of speaks for itself. Those are some guys that headline our top prospects, so it's nice for them to play the way they should and also get that recognition. Last thing, Birmingham Barons won the Southern League title on a walk-off single by actually a local product, DJ Gladney. This is about all the winning we have right now, folks. So
I made this joke today with someone at work. I said, the White Sox Double-A team won their championship last night. Theoretically, that means the White Sox will win the World Series soon.
Yeah, theoretically. Emphasis on theoretically.
They laughed.
Yeah,
I don't think it works that way. I was like, I think it does.
If only.
Yeah.
We got a long way to go. If Jerry's announcement at the end of the year, which again he said he has an announcement or he's going to talk or some bullshit.
He's just going to talk.
Yeah.
He's going to talk about how sad this season was, and we're going to get this right quick, and then he's going to spend $0.
Yeah, he's like, but I still made money. All right, well, that's it, guys. That's all we had for today's episode. It was actually a little bit of a longer one, almost an hour and a half here. So if there's anything you want us to add in future episodes, as usual, make sure to let us know. But thanks for tuning in, as usual, for another week, and we will see y'all next week.